Hello, my name is Dr. Yaya Sissoko. Today we're going to talk about Chapter A, Application, the Causes of Taxation, Deadweight Laws of Taxation. So if the tax on the good is levied on the buyer, then the main curve would shift to the left and by the size of the tax. In other words, if buyer have to pay the taxes, so this will reduce consumer surplus. On the other hand, if the tax on the good is levied on the seller, supply curve will shift to the left by the size of the taxes. So this means that if the tax is paid by the seller, supply the consumer, the producer surplus will decrease in this case. So what are the consequences of a tax imposed on buyer and seller? It's the same outcome. Price it's going to lead to a price wedge. The price paid by buyer rises, the price paid by received by seller fall, and the quantity sold in the market also decrease. So one important question to know: who is going to bear the tax burden? In other words, so who's going to pay more of the tax, the producer or the consumer? The distribution of the tax between consumer and producer depend on the elasticity of supply and demand. Figure 1 show the effect of a tax. For instance, so you can see that supply curve and demand curve intercept at this point, which is the equilibrium point. We have the price without tax and the quantity without tax. If the tax is imposed, this will be the size of the tax, and then buyer would pay this this price, okay, which is higher than the equilibrium price, and seller will receive this price, which is lower than the equilibrium price. So you can see that therefore, so the the tax will increase the price paid by buyer and lower, the price received by seller, and the quantity in the economy sold will be also you know lower. In that case, you can see from Q without tax to Q with tax. Now let's talk about how taxes impact the economic welfare. Usually, the impact of taxes on buyer is going to reduce consumer surplus. For the seller, taxes will also reduce producer surplus, but the government will 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 get tax revenue, which usually equal to tax time the quantity sold. you know, Usually the public will benefit from taxes because the government can use the taxes to finance government projects like building road, building schools, building highways. So spending on military defense. So you can see that public project usually benefit to the population. But contrary, in this photo, these two gentlemen are saying that the idea of taxation with representation doesn't appeal to me either. So really, they are against of the idea of increasing taxes, in that case. Figure two deal with tax revenue. to complete tax revenue, you take the taxes, the size of the tax with this much, you multiply that with the quantity sold in the market Q. It's going to be T times Q will give you the tax revenue. So figure 3, how a tax affects the welfare. For instance, before taxes, the price paid to the buyer is PP, and the consumer surplus is area A plus area C. The price paid without tax, the price paid to the seller is the price received by the seller is PS, and the producer surplus is area D plus area A. And then if you impose taxes, B, and C will be the tax revenue, and the deadweight loss will be area C plus area E. So to summarize, then you can see that consumer surplus without taxes equal to so area A plus B plus C. I'll do this area, and then with taxes, consumer surplus is only area A, and then the loss it will be B and C will be the loss, so which is the change right there. In the case of producer surplus, before taxes, the producer surplus equal to area D plus E plus F. So which is this one. With taxes, the consumer surplus is only area F, so that one. And the loss is area D plus E. Area D plus E will be the loss, in that case, D plus E will be the loss. Now, how about the tax revenue? So in the case of with no tax, of course, so the equivalent right here, the tax revenue will be zero, none. But with taxes imposed, the tax revenue equal to B plus D, and then so the change will be B plus C will be tax revenue will increase by B plus C. The total surplus now before the taxes is everything. You add up everything: A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus F. Now with taxes, the total surplus is only A plus B plus D plus F. The change here is C plus A, which is deadweight loss. The deadweight loss now is area C plus A. That's it. This portion is loss to the society. That's why we call it deadweight. The welfare without the taxes, consumer surplus go to area A, B, and C. Producer surplus equal to area D and F. The tax revenue equal to zero. The welfare with taxes, consumer surplus is smaller, it will equal to only area A. Producer surplus is smaller, it's equal to only area B. The total taxes equal to area A and B, and the welfare is smaller in that case. So how do you measure the deadweight loss? So the deadweight loss come from the losses of surplus to buyer and seller from the tax. Usually, the deadweight loss happen whenever this loss is greater than the tax revenue raised by the government. So the deadweight loss is the fall in total surplus that resulted from the taxes. So usually markets are not able to allocate resources efficiently with the tax. So how do you measure the deadweight losses and gain from the trade? So usually taxes cause deadweight losses. So taxes prevent buyer and seller for realizing some gain from trade. So the gain from trade would be the difference between buyer value and seller cost, so are less than the taxes. So once the tax is imposed, the trade are not made, and this will lead to debt loss. Figure number four deal with the sources of a debt loss. Before the government imposes the tax, the market is in equilibrium where supply equal to demand at this equilibrium price. So there, the value to the buyer and the value to the cost to the seller are equal. This is the equilibrium price, so the price without tax, and the equilibrium quantity, the quantity Q1, the quantity without tax. However, the government imposing a tax, so, and then this is tax size here. So in that sense, so the tax revenue will be this area, tax revenue will be the area. So then you can see that at this point here, the value to the buyer is measured by this one right here. The cost to the seller is measured by this right here. But this area here, the difference between would be the loss gain from trade. By imposing the tax, the quantity traded in the market will decrease from Q1 to Q2 in that sense. So you can see that this area, the residual loss, which is going to be this area, it's not captured by either the this the consumer or the producers. So that's the loss gain. This loss gain for trade create the derivative loss.